All right, let's tackle us the reproductive system today. As an overview, the main function of the reproductive system is to make germ cells, promote union of the germ cells, and then giving the fertilized ovum an environment in which it can develop from an embryo to a fetus that is mature enough to be born and then become viable in the world out here. That's the main function of the reproductive system. It also secretes sex-specific hormones that help shape a body specific to their sexes. So what we need to make us be able to reproduce offspring. And that brings us to the sexual organs. As an overview, we have internal and we have external sexual organs. We have the internals are the gonads. They produce the germ cells as well as sex hormones. And then we have reproductive passages. They transport the reproductive products. And we have reproductive glands. And glands secrete. And those secretions promote the union of the ovum and the sperms. And then we have external organs, and they allow the sexual union. In the male, we have the penis and the scrotum. In the female, we have the labia, the clitoris, the vestibule with glands, as well as the mammary glands. And of course, we start with the guys. We start with the male reproductive organs, like always. But the books are set up that way, so I'm not going to argue. When we orient ourselves in the pictures, we got to look at the picture down here. We have, well, this is the bigger picture. There's a side view with the pelvic bone, the bladder, the penis, the scrotum. And then down here we have the inside of the scrotum. That's the testicle. And that's where the testis is where we produce sperm. So spermatozoa is the name for sperm, the technical name for sperm. From there they swim upward through this channel here. That's called the retetestes before they enter this back portion here, which is a convoluted tubules. That's called the epididymis. The epididymis. In here we store the spermatozoa, and we also secrete substances that promote the sperm maturation. And then from there, now we're back here in this location here. From there, we go through a vas deferens or a ductus deferens. That depends on the picture you're looking at. And that carries the sperm together with some other vessels, blood vessels, and nerves as a muscular spermatic cord through the inguinal canal into the pelvis, right in here, going into the pelvis, coming from behind. This is the bladder, coming from behind the bladder, entering into a wider space here called an ampulla, where then we have ducts from seminal vesicles, and seminal vesicles secrete more stuff into this area here. We'll talk about that later. They become the ejaculatory duct, and they move through the prostate gland into the urethra that then joins what the bladder brings out here into the penis. And we also have Cowper's glands, or sometimes they're called bulbourethral glands, and they secrete the fluid directly into the urethra. That then all together we create the spermatic fluid. We also call that semen. When we look more in the testes, we have two plum-sized male gonads, and they lie in a skin pocket called the scrotum, and that's outside the body because that assures us that we have a little bit lower temperature, and that way we have an easier time to make the sperm. The sperm maturation is assured under that temperature. About 3 degrees below their body temperature, and that's below Celsius. When we look, they start out in the abdominal cavity. They start out up here. And they descend from that posterior body wall through the inguinal ligament into the scrotum as the fetus matures. And that's at the end of fetal development. Inside, well, no, actually surrounding, we have this, here it's colored red, just as a distinguishing feature, color so we can see it. It's a capsule, and that capsule is called the tunica albuginea. And that forms septa. Those are these red things going inward, and the septa subdivides each testicle into more than about 200 lobules. And within them Those in here is a lobule. Within that lobule, we have a seminiferous tubules, and that's actually epithelium. So up here, you can see that seminiferous tubule. It's epithelium that shows that forms the spermatozoa. So that in there we have the spermatogenesis, the creation, the genesis of the sperm. And the seminiferous tubules are about, altogether, if we take the two testes, about 350 meters in length. That's about 350 yards. That's a lot. And in here, the epithelium here has helpers, and the supportive sertoli cells, together with them, forms the sperm cells. And the sperm cells are, again, that's the name, spermatozoa. And we do that process from puberty on in the guys into old age. When we look at the spermatogenesis, here we have the seminiferous tubule, right here, seminiferous tubule, that's the superficial from the outside, that's on the bottom, the base layer. And in here we have diploid germ cells. These are these diploid germ cells, and what they do is they multiply by mitosis to form a primary spermatocyte. And here's this primary spermatocyte. So this is a regular mitosis process. So we have germ cells that do mitosis, they divide, and one of them becomes, so that makes us have a spermatocyte be created. And those are diploids. They have 2 times the genetic material. So they have a mom and a dad. And then we have a maturation phase, and they divide by meiosis in the maturation phase to become 2 secondary spermatocytes. And the secondary spermatocytes is the first maturation division, and then we further divide them into spermatotids, and that's a secondary maturation division. And what we do is we end up with 1 strain only, not 2 strains. So we end up with 23 chromosomes, not 46. And that's not then a diploid, because we only have 1 copy of the chromosomes, not 2 copies. That's called a haploid, a half. And so from there, the spermatotids are transformed into motile spermatozoa. We attach a tail to it and some other stuff at about 1,000 per second. And that's a lot. And from there we go into the epididymis. So we get transported into the epididymis. Is that already there? Yeah, look at that. We're already getting there. So we have a brief explanation about testosterone. The endocrine interstitial cells, the Leydig cells, produce the male sex hormone into the bloodstream. So the interstitial cells inside here are the ones, see they're right here, are the ones that make the testosterone. Sometimes they're called Leydig cells, that's the old name for it. And the testosterone goes into the bloodstream, so it's a hormone. And what it does, it promotes sperm production, but also the growth of the external sex hormones or sexual organs, as well as the male-specific behavior. It further influences sexual characteristics, which means the hair distribution, and also has an anabolic effect on metabolism. So it builds bigger muscles and bigger bones. It's makes stuff bigger. The testosterone production and the spermatogenesis are controlled ultimately by the hypothalamus through the luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. And we have a direct feedback mechanism or blood levels of those hormones that will feed back to make sure there's not too much produced all at once. That's testosterone right there. And now we have a brief more talk about the spermatozoa, the sperm itself. The sperm is a motile cell that measures about 1/20th of a millimeter. That's just small. All right. It has a head right here, and the head contains the haploid cell nucleus. Again, we're only going to have 23 chromosomes in here, so it's a half. It's a haploid, only 1 copy, because we're going to get the other one from mom, right? And then it has a cap-like acrosome up in here, and the acrosome has enzymes in it that help penetrate the ovum once we get there. Here's the acrosome, here's the nucleus. Then below there we have a short neck, And the short neck contains two centrioles. That's like right here, the little small stuff here. That's the two centrioles that then help cleavage the spindle after the potential union with an ovum. What? Yeah, if you finish the union of the two chromosomes coming together when you do the multiplication of a regular cell division, you got these spindles that reach from cell to cell, and at the ends are the centrioles that pull the spindles when we have to finish it all up. And we have them in there to help finish up the process when we get to the ladies. And so after that neck, that small little neck, that's just basically a storage space for those centrioles. We have then a middle piece, and here's the middle piece. And see what you see here, these little things, these are mitochondria. So we have a lot of mitochondria in there because we need to make a lot of energy for the flagellum, which is the tail. That's called the flagellum, to whip. And so wiggling that tail propels the sperm forward at a speed of about 3 to 4 millimeters per minute. Well, that's not bad. So you're 1/20th of a millimeter, so we have 3 to 4 millimeters that we can move per minute. So they can then reach the ovum after swimming through the uterus and the fallopian tube, which we'll get to, in about 1 to 3 hours, depending on how fast they are. But their viability is up to 4 days. And so, they can live for up to 4 days. That brings us to the glands. Look at that. No pictures on the glands. Wow. We have multiple glands. We have two seminal vesicles, two seminal glands, and they produce an alkaline-rich, protein-rich secretion of about 75% of the whole semen that will be. It has a lot of fructose in it, and that gives the sperm the energy and keeps them viable in an environment that's acidic, which is in the vagina. It's acidic in the vagina. And then the prostate is a large chestnut-shaped gland that secretes a lightly acidic fluid. It's about 25% of the semen. It contains enzymes. It contains immunoglobulins. IgSs are immunoglobulins. Those are antibodies. And it contains prostaglandins for uterine stimulation as well as sperm motility and fertility. When we look at the prostate, we often talk about prostate cancer. So we have two zones. We have an outer zone, and the outer zone develops malignant tumors where then as the inner zone, and the inner zone is where the urethra pierces through it, the periurethral zone is a common place for benign tumors. And then below that, we have these two Cowper glands that secrete, that feed into the urethra. And what they do is they secrete a weak alkaline fluid directly into the urethra, neutralizing its acidic environment because the pee is acidic. And so it sort of cleans up the urethra before we get the ejaculate coming in. And when we look at that, an average ejaculate contains about 20 million sperm per milliliter. That's a lot. And so what happens when we take these testicles away? We castrate somebody. We surgically remove them, and that leads to not a production of sex, of sperm, but also an incredible hormonal disturbance. And so that is in difference to sterilization, and that's where we divide the vas deferens on each side. In this case, the libido and the potency remains intact. We just are not viable anymore.